Hey, welcome to episode 201 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tettles as always.
Yo, what's up?
And Trell, who we've got on a phone or on a hotspot of some kind this week, so no video possible. But we've got a beautiful photograph of his iconic delete Told de Gore sign.
Yeah, from 2019.
Wow,
Yeah.
Joel, you definitely put the hot in hotspot.
Oh, thank you.
So this week we have so we're gonna do Waycrest Manor as our dungeon today. But I guess right at the top, it's worth talking about. There was a big set of layoffs announced today at Blizzard, which is really sad.
I mean, it's quite unfortunate. It seems like it's not too many WoW people. It seemed like it was a lot of customer service and a lot of Q&A people. That got laid off.
I saw Overwatch people as well. The unannounced or the
survival game, I think, is
survival game
completely gone.
Which is a shame. That looked, I don't know. I mean, I always get hyped about new games, and then half the time, of course, they end up under delivering or whatever. But I was still hyped about that one. That one looked cool. I like survival games, so the idea of a Blizzard take on it was pretty exciting. So sad to see that one go, and sad to see just a lot of people go. But yeah, there was a post I think that said WoW timelines unaffected, and just anecdotally, most of the WoW devs I followed seemed to be not laid off. So I guess that's a silver lining. I don't know.
Our producer for the MDI made it he posted something in our MDI Discord, but it sounded like he got laid off, and I just DM'd him immediately, and he goes, "No, why do you ask?" I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
it's like, not me. I'm fine.
Yeah, I was like, "What, man?"
Just a grade A troll.
The biggest downside for us on the WoW side is the loss of Mike Ybarra quick.
Yeah, who didn't get laid off, but who is leaving today as well at the same time as it. Yeah.
He finished the Microsoft merger and then he made his way out, I think. But the thing is, he was such a good addition to the WoW side, specifically from our point of view, at least, because he was so down among the players. He gamed with a lot of people all the time. He listened to tons of player feedback, and that's really unique for a C-suite level person to do that.
It's not in the scope of his job to actually do that. Mike Ybarra's day-to-day job is attending meetings, looking at future plans for the scope of Activision Blizzard. So the fact that he was actually playing the game and listening to feedback and stuff like that is definitely outside of the scope of his job.
Yeah, I am. You're not going to see. It is unlikely that the replacement will be in everybody's Twitch chats, and not just in Twitch chats, but pushing his own keys and doing his own raids, and
getting title.
It wasn't even just WoW as well, right? He would play the new Diablo season, and he would stream that, and that was, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to some extent, right? Whether or not the president is doing those things might or might not actually matter for what happens to a game, right? But it definitely was. It felt nice that he was doing that, right? Like that.
Yeah, the passion is big.
Yeah,
it's
and
nice.
It added a degree of I guess, confidence that even if a game was not making a decision short term or didn't look like it was moving in a direction that was good, at least there was understanding, right, of the actual players all the way up to the top, which I don't know. I don't want to be too doomer about the future of WoW or anything like that, but it's definitely a loss, not just Ybarra, but all the employees, the customer service as well. Blizzard, I don't know. Blizzard customer service, it used to be the gold standard.
Was it really?
And then it kind of moved into this era of people would play GM roulette, where you would just keep opening tickets until you got a good GM. But now I guess there's a fear that that may just not be possible anymore, right? The good GMs might all be gone now too. So that's because it looks like they've laid off almost all of the GMs, and now it's going to be outsourced customer service. So,
oh no,
yeah,
that makes sense. It's unfortunate, but it makes sense that it happened.
It reduces the likelihood that you're going to be able to get a GM that will be able to
actually
look into, which again, it was big RNG whether you'd get one of those anytime you opened a ticket, but that has gotten worse. So I don't know. A lot of things have gotten worse.
I would say a very sad day for Blizzard in general, and I mean, Blizzard posted record profits for 2023. It's just really a sad day.
Yeah,
this happened.
I mean, to some extent, like you see after mergers, right? Like
it's a merger, right?
It's
a merger issue.
In some cases, it's like there are redundant roles now that that this happens to. But I don't know. It's stuff like the survival game getting canceled, and like all of the people working on it laid off is not that, right? That's just layoffs.
That might have happened almost regardless of whether or not they were with Microsoft even.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. The counterfactual is like assigning the blame to Microsoft is definitely, I don't know, it definitely feels like the thing to do.
Some of it is Microsoft, right?
But also, we don't know what would have happened if they hadn't been acquired, if the whole place was shut down, or if they would have had to lay off more people or what. So
I mean, it's just another in the long line of tech layoffs. I mean, we saw Riot lay off people earlier this week. We saw Discord and Twitch lay off people earlier last month. I mean, there's Google laid off 10,000 people or something mid part of last year too. Like I don't know. There's been a lot of tech layoffs recently.
Yeah, and games in particular. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this is the last of it, right? Hopefully hopefully all the people affected land on their feet somewhere and
yep.
Yeah. Okay. With that being said, though, let's move on to talking about the WoW stuff of our WoW podcast here. First up, we have class tuning. We had some class tuning come in this reset with only buffs, in PvE at least, only buffs to several specs, including, I want to say most notably for M+, well, there was a small buff to Unholy, which for MDI, I suspect will be a extremely relevant spec. And then there were buffs to Feral and Resto Druid, which are, I guess, plausible specs. Ret Pally, which is a spec that a lot of people are pretty hyped about now.
Dude, the Ret Pally buffs are crazy.
Yeah, these are some large buffs to the like burst AoE and also the single target of the M+ build, which is, two huge weaknesses or two places where the spec now really shines, which is sweet. I mean, this spec is now just, I don't know. Do you guys think this thing is just a great spec? Tettles, you're muted. You're
no. I said the spec is still not good without the legendary.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know. Ret's also one of the top simming specs in the game now. I think the top simming spec in the game now. Obviously, if you look at data, they're still middle of the pack for raid, which is, I mean, all of these buffs were targeted at raid performance, more broadly speaking. But this is great for Ret Mythic Plus. It was like a solid third DPS option, like a solid mid-tier spec, and now it's definitely... It contends pretty well in non-AUG compositions, is what I will say about Ret.
I'd say it's at least top 4 or 5 specs.
I would agree with that, yeah.
I don't know for sure yet.
It moved from like 7th, 8th to top 4.
Yeah. And I haven't been able to play it all this week so far, but I did see Razor, or Dazer, I guess. I don't know what he's known as. Dazer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him playing with Growl and Dorky and a couple others, and he was pumping. He was doing good. He was doing both single target and AoE.
Yeah,
their damn looks okay. It's not like they're not blowing anybody out of the water. They're not in like nerf territory or anything like that, but it is a spec that is now significantly better.
It's obviously early days in this week so far. The average key level is low, but it is currently the highest represented spec among DPS specs right now.
It's not that good. It is not that good.
Yeah.
Good, though.
Again, like this, you can't ever read the top row too seriously until Monday or something. But that is at least a very encouraging sign for that spec. So yeah, huge rep buffs. Holy Priest was buffed, but
they
majorly.
Didn't need it. Yeah.
Shadow Priest is. What do you guys think about the Shadow Priest potential to being back on the menu here? Because not only did they get some buffs to Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, and Shadowy Apparition, which is like AoE and single target, but Psychic Link, this going from 25 to 30% is huge. That's like a 20% AoE buff. Plus they buffed Mind Blast, which further amplifies now with the Psychic Link damage. Like that's a lot of damage.
So Psychic Link contributes something about 20% of their damage in a Mythic Plus dungeon, normally. Shadow, I think, is like a good option for Fortitude. in most compositions. If you're not playing with a priest healer, then Shadow is fairly solid. They have some pretty distinct downsides in Mythic Plus, though. Like they don't play kick. Like the shit's cringe.
They do still synergize super well with the Og Evoker, and then third spec that likes the PI and the Breath of Eons. That was the scaffolding of the God comp last patch, and I think it still works. It still exists.
I think their top comp is like Mage.
Yeah, Mage.
Og. Vengeance Demon Hunter Mistweaver Monk is what I would have to guess their top comp is.
Yeah, or Resto Druid, and then you've the Mark of the Wild.
Resto Druid's tough because Resto Druid can't play kick either. And so if you have two specs that are not playing kick, it's like really rough.
I think you can make your Shadow Priest talented. I think you can. I think you can.
Yeah, but it's like pulling teeth.
They'll complain, but I think you can make them do it.
Well, most of these, I mean, a lot of the comps can succeed with low kicks because of the Vengeance Moonkin combo.
Mm-hmm.
You have like infinite silences the entire set of pulls, but there's like a few instances where you need hard kicks, like the second boss in Everbloom, the council boss, is really, really hard with multiple casters.
I do think that the buffs to Ret and Shadow, I think Ret, it's not like we can look at some of the other stuff, but Ret and Shadow are definitely the biggest recipients of these buffs. For Mythic Plus specifically, for Raid, it's a little bit different, but like, I think that this kind of opens up the 3 DPS compositions even more to be possible, because if you're able to get Fortitude from like a DPS priest perspective, that opens up your options to not get one shot by mechanics. Ret Paladin is just Devo Aura Sacrifice. They have pretty good healing. They have like healing hands and stuff like that. Like that
is Sack too.
Also, Sack 1 minute Sack is broken. Very good.
Ret Paladin can essentially replace an Og. I feel like
I agree.
It's like an Og that does more damage. It provides through the group some DR, not quite as much effective health as an Og. It also has the 1 minute like pseudo rescue, although Sack's even better than rescue.
Sack's 20% DR and rescue's 30% HP.
Yeah, I guess they're better than each other in some different scenarios.
It depends. Yeah, usually the HP is nice because it stacks with other DRs as well really well. But if you're trying to use just one button, which you often are, then it doesn't really matter, right? They're kind of the same.
It also depends on like how much you're getting hit for, right? Because if you're getting hit for a health bar and a half or something like that, the Sack is going to be better. But if you're getting hit for much less than that, it's not going to be.
You're getting hit for a health bar and a half, then GN Rep Pally with the Sack used.
Okay, the Rep Pally will get their ass eaten if they have a Sack. You're getting hit that hard.
Okay,
okay. I do think it's really interesting that they buffed Shadow, because since Priest already had a good healing spec, actually has 2 good healing specs. Honestly.
Yeah, that Holy Priest buff is illegal.
Yeah, you now have so many ways to get Fort in the comp, like we said, and so this opens up the comps even more for the meta. So we have I feel like 10 different comps that you could play in 30s and 31s now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I would describe this set of changes so far as like super sweet. Like there are some specs that could have been buffed that weren't, but the ones they have buffed, they've actually buffed several of these over the like relevance threshold, which is rare to see, right? Often you see buffs and it's like, this doesn't matter, right? Like the Frosty K 4% damage thing is like, okay, this doesn't change anything for, for any high-end players. It just makes your life a little bit better if you are playing Frosty K already. But these ones, the Rep Pally ones, the Shadow Priest ones, and to a lesser extent, the Resto Druid, Feral Druid, Holy Priest ones.
Holy Priest, Resto Shaman, I think are 2 also.
Yeah, Resto Shaman got a 5% bump to their healing and also a 20% buff basically to their single target.
That's the damn. That's what we're looking at. Yeah. I don't know. I think that these were mostly targeted at Raid, but these were well thought out buffs. And it moved mid-tier specs for Mythic Plus up into viable options, like really viable options. And so I think never going to complain about that, but I think that they were mostly aimed at like, this was the bottom 8 specs in Raid or something like that if you looked on Warcraft logs. And so that's clear that's why they were getting buffed.
Except for Moonkin.
Yeah, except for Moonkin. Moonkin, because of Council of Dreams, they
doesn't matter.
They couldn't buff that. They couldn't buff that spec. It wasn't allowed. So
I mean, is Moonkin actually the worst spec in Raid?
Yeah, Moonkin actually gets beat by Og in some fights.
There's it's so good in M+. It's like the most.
It is so good in M+. It's so fucking bad in Raid. I'm glad that I'm not rating this tier. I don't know what they should do to it, but like I'm glad that I'm not rating.
That's crazy, man. This is why they keep having to rework Moonkin. It's somehow the worst and the best at something at the same time.
I just love how it's over the past like 5 years, Moonkin has oscillated between like huge AoE damage to Starfall is not a button worth pressing to, big burst AoE, big burst single target, consistent damage, Night Fae, Venthyr, Kyrian. It's just all over the place. The spec is very hard to pin down.
It's fine.
Yeah,
like
it's
that
funny.
in Shadow Breeze. They just
Yeah.
change every patch.
Yeah, the thing with Moonkin though is that it's changed with fewer of the core pieces of the kit actually changing. Right? It's like more like one spell changes and then the specs and the identity. Like, they were like, okay,
True.
today we're changing how Starfall works, and Moonkin players worldwide are just upheavaled.
If they make us only have one Starfall out at a time again, like we had in Shadowlands, I'm gonna be mad again.
Yeah.
That was cringe. I don't know. I think it's. I don't know. I'm not rating, so I don't really care that much. I'm glad that Moonkin's good in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, I mean there are other specs you could point to, like Destro Warlock, for instance, as well. There are a bunch of specs you can look at and be sad that they're not in this list. But
AF. I think AF fucking sucks. Like, why are they not getting buffed?
that's my fault. I've been churning up the meats too much on old Dratno summon, so I've been bringing up the average too much for it to get buffed. That's my fault. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, AF Destro, there's a few other specs. Also, I would say the tank side of things is an area where, like, there was a Blood DK armor buff.
How do they buff Prot Warrior?
The Blood DK armor buff is nice. Prot Warrior is also, I would describe this as a nice buff as well.
Well, it's more just like, why is it their survivability that's getting buffed for Prot Warrior? I feel like they just want damage buff, right?
Yeah, I mean, their damage is
Well, it's,
quite good. I don't know.
It's based on raid. I mean, all this stuff's based on raid. And so,
Yeah.
like,
I look at it in Mythic Plus, and I'm like, dude, Prot Warrior gets fucking shit on my vengeance. Like, why aren't they gonna damage buff?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they should have buffed. If this was based on Mythic Plus, they should have buffed like 3 or 4 tanks damage.
Right.
By a lot.
Which
But,
I do think that. Also, again, like, just some kind of way to address the utility chasm between the pink and purple specs and the others.
We are at raid buff. I think we're at the raid buff Mythic Plus season. This is so weird. I don't think I've ever seen it. We normally talk about raid buffs as being pretty trivial for Mythic Plus. This is definitely the raid buff Mythic Plus season where you stack your comp with as many of the buffs as you possibly can.
Oh yeah, it's all about overcoming the one shots. So when you can get 15% effective health from just buffs alone, it's enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the finding a way to bring, like, a priest and a druid to every group, because those are the raid buffs that matter. I think I don't like the importance of that, but I will say, like, I do think that this season's comp theory crafting experience is at least kind of fun and cool. Like, there's a lot of different options, and you can sit down and have a think about, what might be good in different dungeons, and I think that's cool. So,
Yeah.
at least it's not one of those seasons where the raid buffs stop there being a thought to have about the comp because it just locks one in. Which certainly has happened in previous seasons. Okay, we also have had some other things. They've changed Fearlath for like the 7th time. So,
Oh yeah. Wait, don't DKs apply?
yeah,
the
it applies
legendary spot?
on Blood Boil and Obliterate and stuff now, and for more Winners. I don't know. It applies on a lot of DK abilities, but also they moved damage out of Mark of Fearlath and into Rage of Fearlath to make it so that you're actually supposed to press the active always and not just leave the marks out. Which, yeah, I mean, it's a weird legendary. They've made a lot of changes to it because it had a lot of counterintuitive stuff. Even from the very start, it had like negative haste scaling. But now it, I guess, hopefully is now in a spot where the correct way to play it is to, actually press the active and it doesn't grief any of your stats or anything like that, which is good.
Yeah, I saw a tweet about if they listed out the change log for Fearlath, all the changes that have happened since it came out, it would be enormous.
It's quite a lot for a single item, yeah. Then finally we have Murazan's Rise nerfs have landed. This was, I think, the hardest dungeon by a moderate amount. Based largely on the timer, and a lot of the nerfs they've landed here have been health nerfs. So shield nerf, shield size on tier, health in the tier trash area, and then damage nerfs as well to Time Lost Battlefield and Chrono Lord Deos. So,
thank God, man. Like, honestly,
yeah.
these are massive changes.
Yeah, do you guys think this brings this up from being like the hardest dungeon on most weeks?
Oh, hold on. Let me find a tweet from Sense. So I'll just kind of give my thoughts. I think that this key was only like a key level to a key level and a half harder than all of the other keys, like even like Throne of the Tides and Dark Arctic and stuff like that, they're also like kind of hard keys. But I think that like the big issue with Rise in general is that it's just so hard to get a run going in this key. The first 10 minutes are just so brutal to the point where we see the completion rate, even though it was done last week on a 30, right? Like it's doable at the exact same level as this Dark Art ticket. It's doable at the same level as this Everbloom. It's doable at the same level as this Throne of the Tides. The amount of people who are able to even get a run going in this key is so low though because of the key being so front loaded difficulty wise. And so like I think that these definitely pull it more in line, and it allows you to make more mistakes because there's a lot of situations where you come off the first boss, you come off of tier, and you're 10 minutes and 30 seconds into the key, and you're like, okay, this key's over, and then you zone out.
That's true. It is. There's so much difficulty in those first 10 minutes. I mean, you have to go crazy pulling too many bosses together in the first pull if you want to time a 30, for example. You have to pull like 3 casters in the first pull. As soon as the casters die, you need to chain in 2 or 3 more casters with more guys that melee. There's so many combos and mechanics going on because it's a Dragonflight dungeon. I'm surprised they haven't toned that down a little bit by now, but yeah, it's pretty brutal. And then you fight tier, and if you somehow manage to miss a shield by like 5 million health on the boss, for example, if you get an extra shield, that just adds an extra 30 to 40 seconds to the fight right there. And so like all those little milestones are super important to hit in the first area.
Yeah, so then we have this tweet from Sense that says, it's no surprise Rise got nerfed, but I feel if tuning is happening, then some things in Everbloom, Throne, and Darkheart could be looked at. And then he has a picture of timed 20 and up keys and timed 25 and up keys. Murzan's Rise is definitely a huge outlier. It's less than half of the average runs of the 25 and ups, and it's about half the average runs of the 20s and up. But Throne of the Tides and Everbloom are also both half of the average on the 25 and ups, although they're doing a little bit better on the 20 and ups. And Darkheart as well is a little bit underperforming as well. That's only by 25% or something, the average keystone. So I don't know. Do you guys think that this is first of all, do you think that with these nerfs, Murzan's Rise maybe gets overtaken or overtakes Everbloom or Throne in the 25 and up range going forward?
I would say it comes closer. It's still a very difficult key. They didn't address like the actual mechanics.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit easier to time now.
Yeah, and then I think all of us agree on death affixes on Lashers is a good target in Everbloom. Are there any other kind of glaring changes to make in Everbloom, Throne, or Darkheart?
Throne, the Ravagers and the Sentries, and the Ravagers and the Sentries I would probably hit a little bit. And then I would hit the one shots from the first boss and the Totem Lady's dot probably.
Yeah, Throne being more popular than Everbloom is actually surprising to me because Throne has like 6 different brutally challenging areas.
I don't think that Throne's more popular than Everbloom. I think that more people do Everbloom than Throne if I had to guess, but I think that it's like Everbloom's harder to complete than Throne. I think that Rise, also part of the problem with Rise is like you with the key reroll system, every single time you get a Rise, you just reroll off that shit because that's just not doable on 20 whatever, right? It's not doable at an equal level. Like if you can reroll a key, that means you timed a key at the same level, and you're not able to do Rise at an equal level to that.
Yeah, like to expand on that, when you're trying to get into the 30 ranges, or like let's say your highest key is actually 27s, you're trying to do 27s, your highest Rise is a 25, but you can do like 27 Atal and 27 BRH, then you're going to try to get those before Rise, and so maybe that's why it's like the last priority for people to time, which is generally true across whatever key level you're doing.
I don't know how you felt about it, but every single time we had a Rise, it was like, why do I even need to try 28 Rise whenever I already have 27? Like that key is nuclear difficulty.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit, I guess, of the King's Rest phenomenon where your key would roll into King's Rest, and it's like, oh,
dead key.
This number doesn't, right? Like I've timed a 27, and my key has turned into a 28 of a dungeon that I can only time on a 26, right? Yeah. And you're like, oh no, right? This is not good. So
yeah, that was before key rerolling. So like you would time a 27, and that'd be hype, right? And then it'd become a King's Res, and you're back down to a 25 basically because that dungeon was unable to be completed at a higher key level.
That was it was a big. You would get to the end of the week, you'd do exclamation point keys because that was back before we had detailed /key, and you do exclamation point keys, and 5 King's Rests would pop up in your party chat, and you'd be like, all right, see you guys next week. I think that Rise isn't that bad. I don't think it's that many levels
No.
of a disparity, especially because there was like a junkyard that season as well at the end of that expansion that was like 5 levels easier than King's
Yeah.
Rest. But
It's definitely not that bad.
yeah, I do think I think it is like, I mean, obviously it's statistically a noticeable chunk harder than the others. So I do think though that these nerfs will go quite a bit towards this, right? Like in such a short dungeon timer place, 17% health on the 3 mini bosses is quite a lot. And then also like the lethality of the later bosses. I guess if you usually succeed when you get to them and it's just a question of whether you leave the tier area with enough time, maybe this isn't enough time. Maybe they still need to like add a minute or two to the timer as well. But I do think this will be noticeable.
I think so.
mean, I've seen some people who are that seems like that got like a key level easier.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'd say so
seems
too.
like seems like it's a lot more in line. Like a part of it too is like it's really hard to practice that key. Like it's just like the hardest part of Dark Heart, I think it's 15 minutes into the key. The hardest part of Rise is the first pull, right? It's just like okay.
Well, I mean that makes it, in a sense, that makes it easy to practice.
You can't practice it, right?
Yeah, so you can practice the hard part a lot, but you run into the situation, and we see this with MDI teams sometimes, where the start of the dungeon is very well practiced, and they haven't got a lot of experience at the end of the dungeon, because like you've done 500 pulls of the first pull, and only 30 of them have made it to the end of the dungeon, right? And so you just don't have a lot of experience actually at the end of the dungeon. It's definitely something that can happen on Murazan's Rise. You can see this is one of those spots where you can kind of see the difference between the groups that will play it out and will just finish it out the dungeon versus the ones that don't, and then end up sometimes throwing the end of the dungeon.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a couple of other topics. So we'll let you a little look behind the curtain. A lot of these have been copied and pasted from the previous weeks because we would like italicize them and grade them out as we were in the previous week episodes, because we were getting like an hour in and it's like, okay, we've still got a dungeon to do, let's push these. So with that being said,
I mean, these are like subtopics, right? Like,
yeah,
like,
one of these that is one that I thought, oh, maybe if we italicize this thing out, it will be a resolved problem by the time we get to our next episode or two, but it hasn't happened yet. So this one is Fire Act nerfs. Where are they? Does the boss need them? What's going on here?
Are you guys reclearing?
Yesterday we attempted to re-kill Fire Act for the first time. We were unsuccessful. I will say we lost a sizable amount of time due to a creative decision made by several players to delete their weak auras after we killed Fire Act the first time.
No
A weak
way.
auras boss. So that cost us about an hour, and then like also just resetting everything up, and a couple players have changed and stuff. So, but then also just wipes to various parts of the fight all the way. I mean, we got to the final part of the last phase a couple times, so we're gonna be able to re-kill it. Given next week, I'd be surprised if we didn't. But it is still quite tough. It's not that different from the version that we killed it or the World First Guilds killed it in as well. They've nerfed a couple things about it, right? Like they've taken out a blaze in the intermission. They've taken out cast time and damage and health of the P2 ads, which makes them quite a bit easier. But a lot of the difficulty of that fight is unchanged. A lot of the finicky healing the healer ads and like rescuing them properly so that you get a little bit of wiggle room, and casting Mark of the Wild on them so you get a little bit of wiggle room, like all of that is still unchanged.
Yeah.
And also the first intermission just being a weak aura's catastrophe is also still unchanged. So I don't know.
I think I could use something still. And
yeah.
my guild has been re-killing it. I think they've re-killed it twice. I took a break personally. I've been like on a hardcore job hunt grind in real life, unrelated, but they did have a new tank trial on the first re-kill, so it did take them like a couple hours of reprog, because first of all they had to get through Tendril right before the nerfs, and so the tank trial had to learn Tendril and then Farak, which is a lot of pressure, all of a sudden to do both those bosses. But yeah.
The Tindril nerfs I think did a good job of making that fight, although it's possible that fight will still need some more nerfs in like a couple weeks or a month or something, but they really did a good job of taking that boss to, I think, an appropriate level this late in the tier now. Again, it's not that late in the tier, but like it's late enough that hundreds of guilds are working on Tindral, and we can look at the graph of Tindral kills from old prog stats.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about this. As soon as they nerfed it, how far did it shoot up?
Yeah, so
Blazon killed it.
here is the since the hotfix 10 days ago, the amount of guilds that have killed this boss has basically doubled, with a huge spike there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that was warranted. But you know, you look at Firac and it's still very, very much like there was the December 18th nerfs, and since then there hasn't been anything on this fight. And notably December 18th, we already had the Helm enchanted stuff as well. Player power hasn't grown much since then. We obviously had some buffs come into some specs this week, which I guess makes us a little bit more powerful on average, but most raid comps only had 1 or 2 of those specs, aside from like Blood Decay, who doesn't really care about getting an extra 10% armor. So I don't know. I think that it would be warranted to hit Firac again with something. Again, for me in particular, I think just the first intermission is a really good thing to nuke from orbit, not because it's difficult, but because it's stupid. And a lot of guilds haven't yet pulled this boss and shouldn't have to do the weak aura thing in that intermission. So I think that would be the thing I would target if I was looking at it. But yeah, it's an interesting question. Our next topic is faded raids, sort of, which again, we don't know what this is going to look like yet, but it's worth thinking a little bit about, like, what are they going to do in Season 4? When might Season 4 be? And what will be... Because if it's soon, like, the Hall of Fame has yet to fill. A lot of guilds that are going to be missing out on Cutting Edge, potentially. Or I guess, do you still get Cutting Edge through the end of the expansion on Firac?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you did. Well, you did for Jailer.
Yeah. Still, though, I feel like
That's
it's... If Season 4 is like 3 months after Season 3, I still feel like that's like a short amount of time for Season 3 to exist. But we don't know when it is. We haven't heard any announcements yet, so...
I mean, it
anytime,
seemed like we were maybe supposed to get an announcement this week. It seemed like people were posting cryptic messages, making it sound like we were going to hear something, but like
I wouldn't be surprised if those got affected by the whole layoff stuff as well.
It's unlikely.
Also, there's the 10.1.6 pirate thing, which I guess could be the faded theme. Could be a pirate themed faded tier. That could be sweet. But otherwise, that would be I don't know. So I guess the question is, like, what are we hoping that they'll do with the raid, given that last time they did all 3 raids, rotating weekly, raid affixes per boss fight, deterministic loot with the dinar system. Do we have any changes we'd like to that system? Anything? I mean, I think obviously all of us hope that they bring back dinars again. Dinars are sweet. But the other stuff, the rotating weekly raids, is there something other than the affixes that we'd like?
I think the rotating weekly raids is a failure. I did not like that. Like, for future faded stuff, I mean, this is obviously probably too late, right? I don't know if we're getting it again. The rotating raids, I think, is the largest failure point for me personally. I just don't find it particularly fun. Like, I think that I understand where they're coming from with it. Like, they're trying to let people see the entire raid over the course of the entire expansion with fade and stuff like that. But in general, it just doesn't feel satisfying to play. And like, say you're a progression focused guild, it just completely kills your vibe for the entire patch, right?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of a problem for guilds trying to recruit too. Like, let's say your guild's a little short on members right now, and you're going into a faded patch. It's kind of hard to find like the same value of player or the same motivation of level of player that you would normally see in a new patch, because there's not going to be a real new content patch for like a year, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope they do something weird and big, but I don't know what that would look like without being... It's weird, because with Raid, like, the more they change it, kind of the more it sucks to... Because it's really hard to have a guild full of people that will be enthusiastic about doing anything kind of progression shaped. So, I don't know. I think moving it more in the direction of, like, just really nuking the bot, like giving you huge damage and letting you just blast bosses and stuff is the way to go with it. But I don't know. It's tough. I hope they have something different than the affixes from last time for it, and I hope whatever they come up with is cool. But I can't think of anything that sounds cool. So
Yeah. Also, I want to add that I think on the player side, it might be an easier time of getting into like a higher ranked guild than normal because of the faded situation. So if you're looking for a guild, if you're looking to step up, it's probably a good time.
yeah, I would say possible, but it's tough because there will be guilds like
right.
right. I don't know. I mean, I do think it is a good opportunity to get into guilds. Yeah.
Okay. How I would describe it is it's kind of like classic. It's kind of like classic raiding, where for some people they actually kind of want to do that, but for a lot of people in retail they raid for progression, right? Or they like very rarely are they raiding to like, and it kind of feels weird because you're doing like this farm thing that some people don't necessarily know all the bosses, and it's not like super hard, but it's like hard enough to be kind of annoying, and you're like, and then you have a lot of guilds, especially mythic level guilds, that just don't participate, and I think that to me feels like a massive failure of the faded system. Is if the mythic level guilds are like, I'm not participating, I'll show back up next expansion, that's a miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my guild is predisposed to basically do like I think we will clear the faded, but I don't know. There's not going to be an appetite for really like. I mean, even last year, you know, the progression was like a week or two if you'd already cleared those mythic bosses on Cutting Edge. You could usually get them the first week or the second week that they were around in that rotation. But yeah, there's certainly like very little desire to like play a progression schedule or anything like that. Which is tough because like that desire exists within maybe 10 people in the raid or something, but you know, you need 20 people to want to do stuff, and I don't know.
Like makes people's goals more divisive.
Right.
I think that's the biggest problem.
I feel that way in a huge way with stuff like this, where you know guilds get pulled in different directions because some people want to do the stuff and some people don't, and you know, to some extent that's unavoidable, but Faded Season seems to particularly do that. On the dungeon side of things, what are we thinking for the dungeon pool? I think a very common suggestion or likely thing for them to do would be, of course, all 10 Dragonflight dungeons, because each of them has only had one season so far, and I think it makes sense. It would be kind of weird if, you know, they make a whole new dungeon and stuff, and it only has 6 months total of M+ time before the next expansion.
I think Faded for Mythic Plus, I think that makes the most sense. Also, people have already seen it as well, so they you know, they kind of know what they're doing about stuff like that. I think that Faded for Mythic Plus makes more sense, right? And it's easier to jump into than Faded for rating. I don't really hate it. I think it's okay.
I think it's good. I liked almost all the Dragonflight dungeons too, except maybe like Ultimate and Ultimate Fusion. They could just leave those out.
Fucking sucks, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if they actually did like cut Halls of Infusion or whatever, and I guess either bring it down to 8 dungeons for the season or even just return some others. I don't know, like that would be cool if that would feel really responsive, I think, if they did specifically like, you know, fan least favorite dungeons not brought back. Although I think aside from Halls of Infusion, I don't know if you could name one that people wouldn't be sad to see go. Like I know there's a lot of people that don't like Knockit or Azure Vault or Ruby Life Pools or whatever, but there are also people who love all 3 of those dungeons. Brackenhide, Neltharis may be another one. I don't know, with the chains. I don't know.
Yeah, I think all those people have like very polar opinions.
Yeah,
on,
exactly.
Like, a lot of people like him or a lot of people don't.
So I feel like Halls of Infusion is the only safe delete from the Dragonflight dungeons.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, what about affixes? I know there's been a lot of people, including our last week guest Ellesmere, who've had various takes on what to do with affixes. Also, there was a...
Okay, did you see the Gingy?
Yeah,
I was about to bring that up.
There was a Gingy on an Echo podcast thing, either leaked or hallucinated, or you know something, a future affix paradigm whereby there's only one like regular affix on a key.
He sounded so confident. Was the thing?
Sound,
like,
yeah.
I'm confused. Like,
I mean, it's it's
haven't
possible.
heard anything about that, right?
I also haven't heard it, although maybe just you and I are doing a better job of not leaking, perhaps. But genuinely, I haven't heard anything about any of this.
Somebody
I'm
messaged me
not
about it. I
employed
go,
by
I don't know,
Blizzard.
fuck all.
Yeah.
It's he basically summarized a summary of what he said is like Blizzard went out and said that there will be one affix in the
Okay.
dungeon rotation next expansion or next patch or something like that, and it did sound like so matter of fact that I was like listening to it like, wait, what? Did I miss some huge news? Did they listen to feedback and they're actually going to do one affix? This is awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're planning to do that next season or next expansion, I think it would make sense to start it in the Fated season, right? Like in a lot of ways, this season's M Plus was started by the Fated of last season or last expansion doing the rotating dungeons thing, right? Trying that, so could be really cool to see. I don't know. I would love to see affixes reimagined in that way.
I also listened to more of that segment, by the way, and I really love Gingy's opinions on all the affixes. Like he has the same opinion as Ellismere and us, where one affix or one seasonal plus Fort and Tyrannical would be really nice. All the affixes that are otherwise in the game are just unfun to play. But people have generally liked seasonal affixes. And if you think of like the only affixes that you do enjoy, you think back to like only seasonals, so Reaping, Awakened, Encrypted, Shrouded. You know, those are like all the positive ones.
I think they could actually do anything they want with affixes in season 4 if they really want to. They could really just like test anything they want to see and get feedback on in like a legitimate environment. Whether it be completely like a new affix set, whether it be like a new seasonal, they could literally just run anything and it's probably fine. I think now is the time. I mean, Faded is definitely the time to completely test stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope there's some experiments that we haven't even thought of that will be in that season. Okay. We've got Waycrest Manor to talk about, but first, it's time for our big tip of the week segment. My tip of the week is there's a cool week aura that was posted to the competitive WoW subreddit, which is the week aura. You know the prediction, the EHP prediction week aura. It's back. Somebody has updated this thing, and
is it good?
It's still in development, but it's now, you know, again, hopefully correctly showing your physical and magic effective health, and also it has an after hit health percent tracker based on various spells that, you know, are known to one shot you. So, you know, it's sweet. There's a lot of work that's been put into this. A lot of different class kit stuff is correctly being tracked. A lot of it is obviously still in development and stuff, but it's a very cool project. So if you want to make use of it, I'll put the link in the description and stuff, and it's on the competitive WoW subreddit as well. And if you want to help test it and improve it, of course, it looks like it's being actively worked on. So, you know, reports will probably be answered.
I mean, that thing was pretty good in Legion, but it had the downside of it had a massive memory leak in it in Legion and would lag you after like 3 keys of using it, so you'd have to like relog.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if that still has the problem. It's possible.
I mean, this has been remade, right? This is, you know, 7 years later. Surely it doesn't have an issue.
Yeah,
I think this one has more eyes on it too by experienced developers. I have a friend that I play with a lot. I don't know the creator, but my friend has messaged him with like his own findings, and he was also trying to recreate the same week aura. So like, there's multiple people collaborating on it, and I think with the knowledge that the community has gained in the last like 5 or 6 years since the last one, I think it's probably bound to be in a better spot. But it is a lot of work to maintain because there's so many factors and calculations you have to go into deciding if you're going to live a mechanic.
Problem is too, like, it's not relevant every single season. Like, if you think about season 1, we didn't need it. If you think about season 2, we didn't need it. If you think about this season, we need it. Like,
yeah, it is a tool that like you need in the seasons that are about the one shots. But I mean, even the seasons that aren't about the one shots, there's usually a few one shots scattered throughout the dungeons that you got to watch out for as the key gets high.
Yeah,
sure. I think that people need this. Even if you have aspirations of doing, you know, like 25s, 26s, 27s, that's probably a good option for you. I would recommend going and grabbing that.
All right, Charles, what are your tips of the week?
Yeah, it's like multiple tips. It's about Z-axis stuff. There's always a bunch of interesting things that happen when somebody in the group is put into the air. But one cool thing is like if you're a Havoc Demon Hunter, I don't know if other classes can do this in some way, but you can glide over all the freezing orbs in Everbloom in the mage area. So the trash and the boss, whenever she casts the frozen orb circles that go into the middle, you can just fly over them. You don't have to do anything. I don't know if Evoker can do that. You might have to like actually double jump as a Demon Hunter, but it's pretty nice.
I
And then
don't think you can do this, Booker. I would not want to try that personally.
you might be able to leap too as a warrior. You probably have to like get the apex of your leap over the orb, but in like a dire situation, you could probably do it. And then other ZX's stuff I want to talk about are like, so hopefully everyone that's listening knows what a fervent strike is, and that's when something that's supposed to hit the tank randomly hits somebody else for various reasons. But a lot of times these can happen when your tank is walking upstairs, or or just getting hit by a storming tornado, or just like for whatever reason is midair at the time. And so like ZXs can bug out a lot of things in this game, basically. You gotta watch out for that.
All right, Tuttles.
I think on Yasma as well, you can leap over the spiders, can't you?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. You can fly or leap over the spiders any kind of way that puts you in the air.
All right, Tuttles, what do we have for our clip of the week this week?
Okay, so in Black or Cold, there's actually multiple spots on the wall that you can stand in, and the Lancers won't do the Raven Dive on you. Now, they can do the Raven Dive on you first off, if anybody else is like on the ground beneath you, say the melee stack, moves on top of you and baits one of these circles on top of you, it can hit you. Also, if somebody's jumping in the air, and they get picked for the lance while they're like jumping, they can also get leapt on. So say if you have a fire mage in the spot and they want to like cancel some of their combustion stuff, and they're jumping, you can get leapt on there.
Yeah, that's
you know what? Sorry, that reminded me. There's actually more spots like that in the Taldazar that people have found. I'll have to do that next week.
So the Atal ones are related to LOS and your feet being line of sight in some of the spots too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ZX's thing because it puts the position of like the Juggernauts trying to charge to you beneath the ground, so they just can't do it. But yeah, I'll bring that up next week.
All right, let's move on to Waycrest Manor, a dungeon that I feel like is one of the funner dungeons this expansion. I don't know what you guys think, or this season. What do you guys think? Is this obviously there's been the Soulbound Goliath issues in the past, and obviously this is famously the dungeon where Ambition, had their incident, right? But what do you guys just sentiment wise? When I'm looking at keys to do, this is one that's fairly high on my list. How about you guys?
This is fairly high on my list of keys to do. I don't know if I necessarily find it fun.
Okay.
I think it's like okay.
I think it's above average.
Okay.
I think as long as you stay vocal, it's a pretty fun dungeon.
Always got to stay vocal. That's a top tip as well. That's a good tip of the week as well. It's a bonus one. So how do you guys like to start off now that all 4 doors are opened? The world is really your oyster in this dungeon. Do you guys like top right, bottom right? Those famous fun routes that you could get back in BFA. You guys like to run those back ever?
I think any other route except for okay, so basically two starting pulls. The first one is like captains, guards, the witch, and you lust that, and occasionally you get that soul essence in. The second starting pull is straight into triad. I personally prefer that one. I think that is a better starting lust plus all of your offensive CDs kind of situation. But I've seen, I see different groups doing different things.
I think the opener is actually really important. I think on Tyrannical especially, you definitely want to do triad, but you also want to make sure that you don't proc the witch. And we can talk about witches for a long time probably, but the summary of the witches are they rotate weekly where their spawn locations are. And so sometimes there's a witch in that lower left hallway that Dratnos is marking there if you're watching the screen. Sometimes it's in the upper left hallway if you go upper left instead. So you kind of have to be aware before you start the key. And so if you're going to do triad first, you want to avoid that. But also on 4, it's not a bad idea sometimes to just pull, if the Rune Weaver is there in the bottom left, the Rune Weaver plus several captains, basically.
Yeah, do you guys remember when this could proc a Vine Twister? Back in
Those
BFA?
mobs are gone now.
Yeah, there are no more Vine Twisters. It's tragic. R.I.P. in peace, the Vine Twister.
So that witch, okay, so basically I mean, there's what 3 different setups for the witches depending on the week. But three setups for the witches that matter depending on the week. There's none of them bottom left. There's one of them in the front of the bottom left, which is the exact same as one in the back of bottom left, and then there's both bottom left. And if it's both bottom left, holy fuck, we hate that.
Yeah, that one's tricky.
But the witches move on a week by week basis, and you have to go in there for the first time that week to figure out what witch is where.
And you can do that on M0. That's probably the biggest tip for this place is run through the manor on M0 real quick just to see where they're spawning. Especially if you don't know the dungeon well enough yet. And then also, besides the weekly rotation, the witches, most of them have a chance of spawning as either a Runeweaver or a Soul Charmer, which do crazy different stuff. So in that first poll especially, you have to decide, okay, if it's a Runeweaver, we all have an assigned captain kick, because the captains can't be CC'd. Or if it's a Soul Charmer, we all have to abandon our kicks and just kick the Soul Charmer until it's dead, which is a lot harder in my opinion.
Yeah, then you blood elf the captain or whatever, or purge it if you can. But yeah,
I mean, I think if it's a soul charm, we are LOSing everything and I kicking the captains.
Okay.
I think is the general strat. You pray that it's a Runeweaver most of the time though. I feel like it's more often than not a Runeweaver. I don't even know why.
I think there are some that are like set which will spawn there, and some that are RNG. But I could be making
yeah,
that up.
some are set.
Some are static, but I swear to God that both of the ones that are on this left side have like a 70% chance to proc a Runeweaver.
That sounds cope.
No,
Although maybe they
I'm
changed the
pretty
Vine
sure it's
Twister
50-50.
chance into Runeweaver chance. Maybe.
It could be.
I don't know, Troll. What do you like? I feel like I personally get a disproportionate amount of Runeweavers and Soul Charmers there.
I don't know. I've had like 4 runs in a row where I get a Soul Charmer. So
okay, well maybe I'm just fucking high.
Maybe you're lucky.
Yeah, maybe.
But the one in the kitchen by Raul the Gluttonous, that one is always a Runeweaver.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about the actual Heartsbane Triad itself? Any tips for this encounter?
So Tank always kicks the main boss. He doesn't want to get so the bolts on the group are a bit more dangerous, but the tank doesn't want to get bolted back to back. So typically they just want to send their kick on the main.
The way it works is that the active one will always target the tank, right? And the non-active ones will target the group, and the active one will do more damage as well. Right? Is that true news?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. So like the tank manages their own health. They kick when they need to on their main target witch. While the group is you usually want to do 2 and 2 on the left and the right witch starting out. And it used to be the case where you didn't want to kick until the tank had a chance to group all 3 witches into one spot because they could melee. But that's not true anymore. They're finally fixed. So right off the bat, DPS and healer want to kick the side witches whenever they can.
Yeah, I think that in general, Briar is less of a big kick target because Briar's bolt is mitigated by armor. And so it does the same amount of damage except it's mitigated by armor, so it does a little bit less than the other bolts, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess Malady and
Selena, are more sketch.
The hardest part about the boss, I'd say, is the first time that you fight Malady, because she does the most damage to the group, as well as the other 2 witches are active, casting bolts during that first time you fight her. The second time you fight her, one of the witches is dead, so it's just 30% or something like that easier, So you want to typically either have Lust rolling into that phase, or you could just hold Lust until you get to that first Malady phase and just burn her, and it makes it really easy, honestly.
Okay, then we get to the next trash area. You've got some more captain, guardsman, witch pull, and then you're out in the courtyard.
Yeah, so captain. I guess the notable thing for the captains is that one range can solo them as well.
Okay.
So.
Then we get to the courtyard with the fun dogs that will trigger on death affixes. That's always fun on every week with Sanguine or Bursting or Bolstering. And then out here we have the Thorn, the infected Thorn casters as well. How do you guys deal with these pulls?
The witches, so the Thorn Shaper pulls, you typically don't want to pull more than 2 Thorn Shapers at a time. You might be able to get away with it if you have the Vengeance Boomy combo of silencing them for a year straight. But otherwise, you want to divvy up 2 kicks on each witch, or just blanket CC them, because they don't recast after your CC anymore, luckily. And once you typically want to focus them down and then just keep chaining in this area.
Also notably in this area, the fire on the ground hits all of the mobs in this area for percentage-based HP damage. So
Yeah, it
dragging
works.
them
It's
into the
like
fire is good.
any mob that spawned in the courtyard will take damage from the fire, so you can't pull mobs from the rest of the dungeon to it, which really heads up tech that they came up with there. If only Neltharis chains had worked that way, that would be what a time to be alive.
Wow, I didn't think about that. That's
Yeah.
funny.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
the fire pumps. The fire does a lot of damage, and the higher key level you go, the more impactful it is.
yeah.
Brindle's the most important mob to get into the fire because it does percentage-based HP damage. So getting her into it is huge.
Okay, then do you guys like to just go straight into Soulbound Goliath? Do you like to wait for Lust ever, or and pull stuff in the Rawl area? What's the idea here?
It's almost always wait for Lust.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you typically you clear the courtyard. Sometimes if your route includes the two corner packs, like the one corner pack has two Thorn Shapers and a Thorn Guard. The other corner pack from the previous hallway has the Disciple. You can pull those in while you're in this courtyard at some point. Just chain them in at a good time, and then you kind of camp out here. Yeah, you camp out here and you pull several pulls from the hallway or Rawl's room until you get Lust. And if you can clear most of that before Lust, then that means you're on a really good track for the timer. And then you want to go into Soulbound Goliath.
Yeah. Then there's also a question as to do you zone out? Which, if you're watching this podcast, you probably know if you need to zone out or not. The answer is if the key is like above a 25, you can start really considering it. Just to wear PvP trinkets, basically the Gladiator's Medallion trinket that breaks you out of CC. It's pretty good for the Soul Thorns. It really depends on your comp.
Have you ever zoned out and played Dev on this fight as well, or is that something you don't do now that the Soul Thorns are nerfed?
Well, I don't play Dev. I mean, you could reasonably play Dev.
Yeah, I know people were doing it at some point on this fight when there were some AUG mains, but obviously like you have to play Dev as well, which
yeah.
Yeah, I think the benefit of that is you can immune a root every minute instead of every 2 minutes with Deep Breath. And so, yeah, my group did that for a while. I think we switched back to just keeping AUG.
But, yeah, well, the other big benefit is that if a non-AUG DPS gets Soul Thorns, your AUG player is losing damage and your Dev player isn't, right?
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
I think the best spec probably to zone out is like a Havoc Demon Hunter because they lose just the fucking world if they get CC'd. On top of that too, like they can also swap onto Mortal Dance, which is actually okay. It is Sanguine this week, so Mortal Dance is very, very good versus Sanguine. But Mortal Dance is doubly good in this key because it does damage to Lord and Lady Waycrest and lets them heal less.
Yeah, that's a good tip. When you zone in for the final time as Havoc, you want to come in with Mortal Dance for sure. And we should probably mention that mages can immune every single root on Soulbound Goliath.
You can't have Shimmer. You have to blink.
Yeah, you have to have regular blink, but a lot of them already do play Ice Flows depending on the spec. And depending, that's one of the ones where it's like preference. Some mages like it, some mages hate it.
This is 100% an Ice Flows key because of that, though.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that is Moonkins were also able to immune it, but that got fixed.
Good.
Whereas mages did not get fixed.
Yeah, that's only fair.
there was literally no justice in this world, like legitimately.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't fucking matter.
I think that's so funny.
The boss is just bad. Like I'm not even like mad that they fixed it. It's more just like the boss is fix the fucking boss.
He's so mad. He's literally fuming. Oh my god.
Fix the boss, man.
Switch
it's awful
for this.
It's not even fun. Nobody's ever sat there in a Soul Thorns and been like, "Wow, I feel really engaged with the content right now."
Okay, how about that trash that we're pulling out from the Rawl area while we're waiting for Lust? What's the lore there?
So if you pull more than 2 Gorgers, your group is 1 going to hate you and 2 probably going to die. More than 2 Gorgers is a bit suicide. Also, those Gorgers are bugged. Okay, something that actually makes me mad. The Gorgers are bugged and they actually drop threat like randomly as they leap out. Sometimes they'll melee people. So what your tank can do to help alleviate this as much as possible is follow the Gorgers around every single time they leap.
Yeah, that's really annoying, especially for some specs that do ground effect damage, but it's probably the play. It's because there's a chance actually just every time the Gorgers leap to someone that they'll just drop threat entirely. I don't know why, but it's been there for a long time. And then the other rule you should probably apply here is don't pull more than 3 to 6 maggots. On the high keys and 4, it's like actually never pull more than 3 maggots at a time. And then you want to chain CC them until they die. They have pretty low health, but typically you want to throw CC at them back to back to back until they're dead. because they do so much damage.
Yeah, it's a really good spot to communicate who's going to be doing which stun next, so that you can make sure that you get all of those used. Yeah.
Did you say you could outrange the maggot? Sorry, I was zoned out looking at this fight.
I don't know if you can. Do you know?
It's like 30 yards to outrange them or something like that. 40 maybe.
Can.
It's fairly short to where everybody can all range DPS can outrange them. But the downside of outranging them is then your melee are going to get kind of shut on.
Yeah, you could definitely bait them into one-shotting your augmentation player easily.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'm here for that. Okay. Soulbound Goliath. Is there anything about the actual boss encounter that we want to talk about the Soulbound Goliath that we haven't yet covered? I know we already kind of talked about it a little bit with the zoning out and stuff, but
there's a couple of good tips.
Yeah, a lot of people have the question of like, when are you supposed to reset? Like, how many stacks are you supposed to reset on the Goliath itself? I think typically the best answer is like every third set on Tyran is generally whenever you're looking to. It kind of depends on how much damage you're taking though, and so it's like I don't think there's ever like just a one size fits all solution.
Ooh, Tettle's just immune to the thorn with deep breath there in that clip. That was expert level.
Yep, well done. That's how we do that.
I think another good tip is when you actually break him in the fire as a tank player, you want to then move him away from where you broke him steadily. So like you move across this circular part of the courtyard right after you break him, because all the little red men that spawn are going to try to kill your healer.
Yeah.
And they spawn from where the boss is currently, and they spawn over the course of like 5 seconds or something. So if you're moving the entire time and you have something like a H-Pal or Mistweaver, they can still hit the boss and heal the group while also being safe from the red men.
Thorns also take 12 seconds to time out too, if God forbid.
Yeah, the old strat of just leave him in the thorns and let him squirm. Okay, then after this, you may have some trash to clear to go into Rawl, or you may be able to just go straight into Rawl. Rawl often fought with at least a steward, and sometimes you could pull more trash into the fight throughout the duration as well, right?
Steward's sketchy on this guy, isn't it?
Yeah, Steward is now kind of sketchy because you can't interrupt their big circular AoE.
Yeah, you have to do left, right, left, right. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can hold them off to the side like that we see on the screen. It's possible. It's also typical that you can pull 3 maggots either from the kitchen or the opposite side hallway on pull, and just kind of like whittle away at the remaining maggots during the boss fight. The tank can actually leave the boss's melee range while he's casting the Retch funnels. Is that Retch or is that the other ability?
Tenderize is what you're looking for, yeah.
Tenderize, yeah. During Tenderize, you can go grab trash real quick if you're fast.
Yeah. Any other time, it'll cast Consume All, and that's very bad. You want to try and avoid that?
Yep, that is a wipe.
We call those maggots insurance maggots. I don't know what you guys call them.
Because, of course, you lose count if a maggot infest cast goes off, so
yeah,
sometimes you do need a little bit of extra count, yeah.
Damage on the servants is kind of a new thing that you have to worry about this season, whereas in BFA they were really easy, if I remember right. But the servants are made super easy by a Vengeance Demon Hunter. As you can see in the clip, if you're watching, they can just chains them once they get kind of close to the boss, and then you can knock them away, or just stun them and they'll just die instantly, because grouped mobs die infinitely faster than spread mobs.
In BFA as well, the boss just gained a damage buff, whereas now it puts a dot on everybody whenever he consumes a servant.
Yeah. Very nasty, yeah.
Much different mechanic, I think.
Okay, then, depending on how much count we have, what do you like to pull after Rawl as we head down to Lord and Lady Waycrest?
So, for a while, people were going through the kitchen, but now people have stopped doing that because they don't want to deal with that witch. And instead, they're now doing Alma with this, I don't even know, bottom stair.
Yeah, the other side, like the witch side, yeah.
The only new mob here is the Faceless Maiden, who casts a fear. Basically, you just put DPS on it. Yeah. And then Alma, who also has a Shadow Bolt volley that you put a melee DPS on to kick.
Yeah, her volley is like an extremely tight cast time, though. It's something like 14 and a half seconds. It's really, really tight. So I think you want to have 2 people as backup.
Okay.
But then 1 person soloing the captain and 1 person soloing the maiden, yeah.
Okay, then there's the downstairs room with the soul charmers and the diviner and the essences. How do you guys like to pull this area?
This pull is so hard without vengeance.
This pull is nuclear without vengeance, dude. That I heard. So without venge, I would recommend probably CCing the diviner. If you have a
Okay.
Yeah.
vengeance, you can kind of just raw dog this pull with silent sigils. The soul charmers are so scary. Is like a lot of it, right?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
candles are just so nasty in this with this many casters.
Yeah, so you have to. So before you go into this poll at all, you should coordinate who's going to knock things out of candles,
Yep.
who is going to kick the Soul Charmer on a rotation, and who is going to AoE CC the other stuff if you don't have Vengeance, because otherwise Vengeance can silence everything else besides Soul Charmer. But there's three different things to coordinate on this poll. If you're in a no voice pug, kind of good luck. But otherwise, yeah, if you have those three things, then you should be golden.
The second soul charmer that's in the back right of the room, if it gets pulled with the pack, you are probably wiping immediately. That is just not a pull.
That's the
pretty
pug
simple.
special. Is
Yeah.
that thing walking in? Yep. Okay, then. Okay.
High end groups still like pull the soul charmer into the boss sometimes. Like it might get pulled in here, like depending on how much count you need, because at the very beginning, so there are some kicks that can go on to Lady Waycrest. Basically, if you have a 30-yard kick or longer, so wind shear, pretty much all range kicks, you can kick Lady Waycrest while you're standing on the platform. You can even Avenger Shield it. But a lot of your kicks are kind of freed up for the Soul Charmer, and you can pull it into the boss as well right now if you want. This guy's boss is kind of stupid.
Yeah, this boss is hard even without the Soul Charmer, but you can do that if you want to be even more efficient. Something I see on this boss a lot is having one ranged player stand as close as they can to Lady Waycrest. And if you kick her at a certain time between her casts, she can get locked out for quite a while and skip a couple bullets on people. You can actually kick her through that wall.
I think it's the one that's after the cadenza, but I'm not 100% positive.
Yeah, so that's like a typical mage or warlock job, right?
Yeah,
and then
the warlock can tongues her as well, and then she casts like also less often.
Yeah, tongues is big. And like the rest of that fight, everyone needs to stay pre-spread so you can instant dispel. If you let that debuff sit on you for a while that goes out, it can kill you basically. It does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And then you can also shadow meld and vanish the application of that debuff.
So
if you catch it.
The hounds for these mobs right here, they leap at like furthest player at ranged, so they can potentially be baited. This is like probably more pertinent if you're pulling all of these mobs into the boss, because like with the Dread Essence cast, if they're also leaping at the exact same time, you like if you have somebody who's baiting, they want to be moving at the same time that the Dread Essence is going off, so they don't die.
Okay, anything about Gorak Tool encounter worth talking about?
Aside from the baiting it, I don't really think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, the trash here used to be extremely difficult. You'd have to do all kinds of stuff to live it before pulling this boss. But they made it so the dogs only leap one at a time now.
Which is really good. That's a good
is
change.
Super nice.
Yeah.
So you can pull these onto the last boss pretty easily. You just want to make sure you press defensives for the first couple AoEs that the boss does while the dogs are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Cool. All right. That is Waycrest Manor then discussed. How many dungeons do we even have left? I feel like we've done.
I think it's 2. I don't.
Yeah, which are the ones this season? We've done Darkheart.
I think it's a tall and something else.
Okay. Yeah, so we're nearing the end of the dungeon track, but I hope these have been helpful. I hope people have been enjoying them. Tried to get them started, I think, early this season so we could actually get them done before the season's over, which is working out. Let's move on to our Q&A. But first, we get to thank our supporters over on the Patreon. They include Can I Be R this week? I assume that means just R is what I should have said, not Can I...
No, it's Can I Be R this week.
It's Can I Be R this week? Okay. All right. Just been briefed. All right, I see. A five-man boss once said, "My rotting flesh was just getting in the way." That's the Black Knight from Trial of the Crusader.
Let's thank God that he's here to help us out.
Yeah. Two-handed Lego when I've been killing Farak every week since the start of the patch on 3 different characters. All but that first week, those kills have been on heroic. I haven't even been in a raid where someone else got it again on 3 different characters. That is, I suspect that's quite unlucky to at least not have seen one on somebody else.
I've seen some stats that say that it looks like it's exponential drop rate for the legendary, but like I talked to Squishy about it. He said that he has no clue. And I don't know. It seems like the drop rate of that legendary, there's a lot of people that I know that just don't have it still, and it's such a large damage game for something like a Ret Paladin. I think it's like 10% of their damage or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've seen a couple now. I didn't see any for a couple weeks, but I do feel like it's increasing
Yeah, I
more
mean
than
the bad luck protection for amping up means the amount of drops per week is going to go up by a lot every week, and by more each week, right? Although I guess then people will already have it and they won't be eligible to get it. But yeah, Never Nude, Ja, King of Skills, Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy. Going back to Diablo 4, Season 3 is up. Wait, what is Pal World? Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of D4 Season 3. Kind
Me
of
too.
a weak season, though. I don't know. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to play it. It's sad. Like, I wanted to get into D4 this season. I thought it'd be a good time to do it, but I don't know. It's
Yeah, I thought it was trending up too. I think we're gonna have to wait one more season for it to be like really a fleshed out game. I hope it
yeah.
pulls through though.
I think the core game is just not good enough to support a weak season yet, as well. Which this season definitely feels like a big old nothing ball.
Yeah, have you guys played Power World by the way?
I've not yet. No, I know a lot of people have, but
It is actually hilarious.
yeah, I've seen a lot of discourse around it on Twitter, which there's been some hate in both directions being slung around this game, but I've also I know a lot of people are playing. It's one of those games like Valheim or Minecraft or whatever, where just like half your guild is in a server playing it or whatever. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Salty Senny, ZivXX, Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, EV Year of the Sphere is extended into 2023. Bless up. No Trick, I forgot I was sub tier. Diemat, Rework Mistweaver, Delete Gaming, Master of Fearlath, the Dream Render. Congratulations. Gallic, Brusif, Dratna Shards Abyss, Give Me Liberty, Give Me Fire, Give Me Double Time, or I Retire. Msanity, Xena, Rogue is now good enough for prog, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. Red Color, youtube.com/workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Nevermore, number one Simski Petrelsky. Lurka would like to remind everyone that loose mobs in the back are a lifestyle choice and shouldn't be scorned at in every key. Milk, Sife, Pone, Windwalker Mug Steal with nerfs by rolling with punches. Thesaurus.com is a powerful tool. The Marsh Hare, my raid buff is my great personality and good looks. I play Ellie Shaman. Thank you for listening to the Titanforge podcast. It's brought to you by Daddy Dratty, Grampy Trelsky, and the Tettles Effect. Big Head Small Brain, King's Honor Fellow Horde, it's me, your newest guild member. Juniper, Tettles spreading misinformation on the internet again.
Not me. That's not me.
Chauncey. That moment when your tank says, now where's my ranged at, during Jade Serpent Dragon Boss and breaks your key. Pharaoh Druids in the MDI, you've got to be kidding me. Oh, you don't have that yet? Boom. Sire Dematicus versus Smolderon Weasley, 1v1, no e-girl. The small mammal living in Dratnos' shirt. Sapphire, Zalatath can corrupt my dagger any day. The real war within is the one within my heart. Want to buy frames on Tindril. I'm losing my rage in Eltharion weak auras. I can definitely believe it's not butter. Rock and Stone. Who would win a Titanforge staring contest?
Probably you, right?
I feel like
yeah.
Dranos.
I have been accused of never blinking on stream before, which I think is just because like the camera doesn't catch it sometimes, but I don't know.
I don't think that you necessarily blink less than the average person. I think that like just out of all three of us, like who would be best in a staring contest? I think I would probably wager that it's you.
I suspect
Well, I mean,
it would be motivation.
He has not blinked
based.
since he started talking about it.
Well, now I'm thinking about it. I don't know.
I think Charles.
I have blinked. I mean, you can't tell.
Look at him.
It's not possible.
It's just his picture. Yeah,
it can't be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, Charles. Yeah, Charles has been winning this. He hasn't blinked for an hour. Hang on.
Hold on.
Number one Mythic Guild with a 1 day a week raid schedule and a bunch of Canadians NA, and viewers like you. White Monster, check. Prot Warrior, check. Can't hold threat, check. Will break your key, check. DM me. And Francis. Thank you all for the support. The good ones in there. All right, our first question this week comes from Manbear Logan that says, would it fix Bullstrig if a mob couldn't be buffed by more than like 4 or 5 stacks at a time? And what if they did a similar thing with bursting at like 5 to 7 stacks?
So my issue isn't necessarily Bullstring's like impact level on a key. My biggest issue with Bullstring is that it's just not very fun. Because like I think if you look statistically, even in like TGP and stuff like that, people are able to do the highest level of keys if they're properly motivated, even on really shitty affix weeks, right? But for Bullstring, my issue with it is that it's not very fun, especially compared to a lot of other affix sets.
I think it really depends on the key too, but yeah, I think in the worst scenario for the most egregious affixes, the ones that are the ones that are least fun are the ones that people avoid the most.
Yeah, I'm also not sure if a cap is the right way to go about these, but maybe diminishing returns per stack on these sorts of things could be a good way to do it as well. Like, if 5 stacks is only twice as bad as 2 stacks or 1 stack or whatever, instead of 5 times as bad.
I'm,
I don't
I
know.
mean, there are a lot of mobs that just, if they have two or three stacks of bolster,
Yeah.
the berserkers and Everbloom, like I'm dying to
Right.
that regardless if they're bolstered.
Yeah. All right. Our next question comes from Sean in Discord that says, now that the tier lists, I assume they mean tier sets, have been voted on, which sets do you think are winners in terms of enhancing playstyle, not DPS output, not in terms of meta? What becomes more satisfying or fun? Your results will likely influence my alt choices for Season 4, Feral/Guardian main M pluser. Who's getting a fun tier set? I would say a fun tier set back, right? Like if you already have a fun Season 3 tier set and you're keeping it, then not much is changing, right? It's like which specs are going
not like
back
Havoc
to
and Demon
fun.
Hunter?
Yeah, which specs are getting a fun set bonus back that they lost.
I think the bear one, the Season 2 bear one's actually pretty good, right?
It's definitely powerful. Yeah, it's nice that this
Yeah,
person's a Guardian main, so that'll definitely help at least a little bit there, I think.
I don't know which ones actually alter gameplay is the only part, but the more powerful ones are like, yeah, bear for sure.
Yeah,
Mostly because their current ones are kind of shitty, right?
Destro Lock, we get to go back to not having to talent Channel Demon Fire or Dimensional Rift. So
are they actually going back to the Season 1
they're going back to Season 1. The set bonus doesn't do anything, but that's actually better than Season 2 or Season 3 in terms of the playstyle, because you don't have to play Channel Demon Fire or Dimensional Rift anymore. So, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I can't think of any other, like... I guess there were a couple of pretty good Season 2 set bonuses that won. But in terms of playstyles being enhanced, I don't know. I think most of the big playstyle enhancing set bonuses are the Season 3 set bonuses that won. And so specs are keeping those this season.
I mean, most of the Season 3 set bonuses... So like, Season 1 was about, I would say, 6 to 12% damage gains for most specs. Season 3 is like 15% minimum for most specs. So like I think that people and they end up impacting your gameplay in a different way because they, over the course of the entire expansion, have tried focusing on that. And so I think that of course people I think are going to be more partial to those. Yeah.
All right, our final question comes from Kathu in Discord that says, if Dragonflight Season 4 is all 8 Dragonflight base dungeons, what changes are top prio for each dungeon? And I think there's a good chance Dawn of the Infinite would be in here too, but we talk about Dawn of the Infinite a lot. So let's just focus on these 8 Dragonflight base dungeons.
Halls of Infusion last boss, I think please something has to change.
Yeah,
that fight is just not very good.
Make it like a 50% split phase instead of a timer-based split phase, perhaps.
Okay.
I think would be really welcome on that. Or just cap it so that it only does 1 or 2 split phases and doesn't do a third ever.
Ruby life pools is probably fine.
Yeah, Ruby life pools. I think much of the, like, I feel like with more powerful characters, that dungeon would be a lot more fun as well. Now that we have them,
I think Alg Academy and Azure Vaults as players have gotten better over the course of this entire expansion. They're going to be better at doing both of those dungeons because they require a lot of CC chains, which people are really bad at.
Yeah. Those are going to be like Vengeance Demon Hunter.
Holy
is going to be sick against those, right? We didn't play those back in that season, but Double Sigil Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be kind of nasty against some of those pulls.
Would you fix anything in Azure Vault? I'm trying to think.
I think Azure Vault landed in a pretty good spot.
I liked Azure Vault by the end. Yeah, I know there are people that don't like it, but that one was one I quite liked.
Noku defensive.
I think Nokud was also in a pretty good spot. It got a ton of changes.
Yeah, Nokud, I
mean, like, I would have
wished that it was different, but I don't know if it's any like small changes they could do. Like, I wish that it was a little bit less on rails with having to kill these specific 3 and 4 packs to spawn each boss.
Oh yeah, true.
But I don't know if that's like an easy change to make. That seems like a kind of early in the process thing.
Dude, you're gonna have to get on top of that pole again in the first.
Yeah,
Nokud.
That I'd like to see go away, I guess. Braconite, they should definitely rebalance the pathing so that left after first boss is an option.
Oh yeah,
100%. What is that guy? Fester Gut, whatever. What's that mini boss that's after the second boss? The hyena that wipes you. That's on the bridge.
Yeah.
Stink breath.
Stink breath. Yes, yeah. That guy,
Yeah,
that
stink
guy's a
breath,
motherfucker.
but also I think left after the first boss, and also
Yeah.
right at the end of the dungeon, that the last gauntlet. Both of those could be really looked at to make them compelling options. Obviously, Neltharis I think is mostly just chains. Um, maybe some of the
Yeah.
mobs as well.
Yeah, I mean, Neltharis, I think would need like a fundamental change, right? I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I if Blizzard is listening, stop making dungeons that are like Neltharis. Stop. It's not very fun.
Mhm.
Agreed. I do wish
Oldemon's the
there
last
were.
one.
Did we talk about halls? Did I miss halls?
We
did.
talked a little bit about it. We said last boss. Do you have anything else for Halls?
No, that's basically it. I mean, they could make it so we could skip the dragons easier again. That part was pretty annoying at the end of last season.
I mean, first trash area was also kind of cringe, but like with containment apparatus mobs, those mobs were just bad.
Yeah, true.
But like, so the Oldemon I think is the last one. Bromac is. I don't like Bromac personally.
Oldemon is like the entire dungeon is just like a long, grueling, difficult dungeon. Yeah, I think Bromac is the first thing. I think the snake boss with the trash as a required pull is extremely difficult. And like super high keys, I mean. The casters being as volatile as they are throughout the entire dungeon, honestly, they could take them down a notch and it'd be a lot more fun. And I think like the fourth boss has timed intermissions, right? Or was it just 2?
It was timed. No, it was timed. You only ever got 2 because you did enough damage to only get 2, but it was timed. Yeah.
Yeah, if they made that like a fixed 2 intermission boss, I think that would be a little bit better too. There's like a bunch of minor things they could do for Oldemon.
All right. That is going to be all for us this week. We've kept the episode under 90 minutes for the first time in a while with these dungeon episodes. So, well done. We'll be back next week with, I guess, maybe a Taldazar or something. And yeah, later, everybody.
GG's.